Hello friends, here we are with a book from GSL Library. The name of book is Of Kings and Commoners, Facts and Fiction from the Past. It is being written by Monisha Mukundanan and Shubhadra Sen Gupta. Okay, so from this book we are taking a story, India's Freedom Struggle. Gandhi's historic Dandi March was one of the most important happenings in our freedom movement. It began on 12 March 1930 from Sabarmati Ashram on the outskirts of Ahmedabad on the left bank of the Sabarmati River. He began with 78 of his followers and they were joined by thousands on the way. The march ended 384 kilometers and 84 days later at the seashore in Dandi. Where defying the British government's salt law, Gandhiji picked up a handful of salt at the seashore. By this simple act, he succeeded in uniting India in the quest to gain freedom from the British. Have you ever wondered how people from a small island nation in Europe came to rule such a huge country as India? It is an interesting story. It all began during the time of the Mughal ruler, when India was one of the richest countries in the world. Traders from Arabia carried tales of the fabulous wealth of the Mughals to Europe. The European traders decided to try their luck too. The first problem was the long distance to be traveled by land. Then the Portuguese adventurer Vasco da Gama discovered a sea route to India in 1498 and European traders came pouring into India. The French, Dutch, Portuguese, and English. Everyone wanted to trade with India. The East India Company was created in England in 1600 and they sent their ambassador Sir Thomas Roe to the court of Emperor Jahangir 15 years later. Roe was welcomed by the Mughal monarch and the English were allowed to trade in India. Though the English came as traders, they would one day rule the land. The real reason for the British gaining power in India was the breakup of the Mughal Empire. After the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, the empire began to crumble. It had become too big to be controlled from Delhi. Also, the latter Mughal rulers were weak men who did, who did not possess the intelligence and courage of the early Mughals. Slowly, the far flung parts of the empire broke free. Powerful governors stopped paying taxes to Delhi and began to act like independent rulers. The Mughal kings were too weak to fight them. The French and the British took advantages of this state of chaos and slowly began to increase their power. First, they wanted to trade in more goods. Then, they set up factories, took over villages, and built towns. The French became the advisor to independent rulers in the south, while the British were more active in Bengal and in areas around Bombay and Madras. In the beginning, they were not interested in taking over the country, they only wanted to take over trade and make money. In Bengal, the governor Alivardi Khan had declared himself Nawab. The British had their richest business in his kingdom. Alivardi was a bit suspicious of the British and kept them on tight rein, watching what they were up to and making them pay heavy taxes. In 1756, Alivardi died and was succeeded by his grandson Sirajud-Dowlah. Sirajud-Dowlah was a young, rather headstrong man who lacked Alivardi Khan's shrewdness. The British quickly took advantage of the situation as the young Nawab had problems controlling a large province like Bengal. The British had a prosperous trade in cotton, silk, and sugar, and these interests had to be protected. The British were also fighting the French, who were trying to gain influence at the Bengal court. With a clever, ambitious man like Robert Clive leading them, the British began to create trouble. They supported the claims of another man, Mir Jafar, to the throne of Bengal and defeated Sirajuddaula at the Battle of Palasi in 1757. Mir Jafar, as the new Nawab, was a puppet in their hands. In this way, British slowly took over Bengal. They bled the province dry as the men of the East India Company made huge fortunes by taking over the trade and taxing the peasants until they were completely ruined. In Bengal, Madras, and Bombay, the British were still officially just traders, but they had armies, owned land and factories, and levied taxes. They, however, left the work of administration to the Indian rulers. It was a very convenient arrangement for them. This was the situation before Warren Hastings came to India as the first British Governor General. He took over the administration and created a complete system of running the British Empire. He faced a lot of opposition while achieving his goal. The strongest came from the Nizam of Hyderabad, Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan of Mysore, and the Marathas. Meanwhile, the French were also trying to get the upper hand. Hastings defeated every enemy he faced, and by the time he left India, the British were the strongest power in the subcontinent. The British had been traders once, but after Hastings, they were the rulers. The Company Bahadur, as they were called, ran the administration, levied taxes, and had an army. The British were here to stay, and India was being slowly transformed into a colony.